The British King Charles III is officially recognized as the head of 18 countries within the Commonwealth Realms: Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Antigua and Barbuda, the Bahamas, Belize, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, the Solomon Islands, Tuvalu, and Jamaica. Additionally, under the British Crown are 3 crown dependencies: the Isle of Man, Jersey, and Guernsey, as well as 14 overseas territories, which are remnants of the colonial era. To be more accurate, he has been the head of a commonwealth that is slowly starting to fall apart. It's not surprising, given that a weak king cannot even keep his own son in line. Are you aware that just recently, for the first time, the sun has set over the British Empire? Only in the 20th century did the following break away from the Crown's rule: Siam, now Thailand, in the year 1932, Egypt, 1922, Ireland, 1922, India, 1947, Pakistan, 1947, Ceylon, now Sri Lanka, 1948, Malaysia, 1957, Cyprus, 1960, Nigeria, 1960, Kenya, 1963, South Africa, 1961, Malta, 1964, the Bahamas, 1973, Anguilla, the Turks and Caicos Islands, the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, Montserrat, Guyana, 1966, and Belize, 1981. The British Empire never lost its influence because its colonies were situated in all the Earth's time zones. Historians believe that British forces once occupied nearly every country in the world. As Stuart Laycock notes, Anglo-Saxon aggression targeted the territories of 171 of the 193 countries that make up the United Nations. In addition to military intervention, London employed other methods to achieve geopolitical dominance. For example, most historians believe that British Ambassador Sir Whitworth was actively involved in the conspiracy to assassinate Paul I in 1801. This was done to prevent a possible reconciliation between Russia and Napoleonic France. The Chagos Archipelago is a group of islands located in the Indian Ocean, between the East African coast and the Malay Archipelago. The first Europeans to discover these lands in the 16th century were the Portuguese. However, the economic development of the archipelago began only in the 18th century when the French established their presence in this desolate region. They set up a base on the island of Île-de-France, which became a center for sugarcane cultivation and a notable hub for coconut plantations. Slaves from Madagascar and East Africa, as well as indentured laborers from India, were brought to work on these plantations. During the Napoleonic Wars, Great Britain gained control over Chagos, and Île-de-France was renamed Mauritius. Even after the abolition of slavery in the 1830s, the socio-economic situation of the Chagos people remained challenging. Former slaves continued to work as laborers on coconut plantations, but had no access to land ownership. Plantations remained in the hands of distant landowners, leaving the descendants of Africans, Malagasy, and Indians of mixed race vulnerable. Over time, these people formed a distinct ethnic group known as the Chagosians. By the mid-20th century, their population numbered around 1,000. In the mid-1960s, discussions began about the independence of Mauritius, including the Chagos Islands. At the same time, the British government was negotiating with the United States about establishing a military base in the Indian Ocean. The preferred location for this base was in an area of a European country where the local population would have minimal involvement in its creation. In 1965, Chagos was separated from Mauritius and became a distinct British territory in the Indian Ocean. Plantations were purchased from their owners and closed down, and between 1967 and 1973, the entire population was gradually deported either to the Seychelles or to Mauritius. In 1968, Mauritius gained independence, and the United Kingdom provided compensation of £3 million for Chagos, promising to return the archipelago later when it was no longer needed for military purposes. In 1966, the United Kingdom and the United States signed an agreement to establish a joint military base on the Chagos Islands. The agreement was to last 50 years with an automatic extension for 20 years, meaning it would expire in 2036. The Chagos residents received financial compensation, but they were not allowed to return to their native islands. Since the 2000s, activists have continually attempted to challenge this decision in court, but their efforts have been unsuccessful. Mauritius, whose Chagos was taken away even before gaining independence, considers this acquisition deceptive. Despite numerous promises to return the islands, these commitments have not been fulfilled. In 2010, the United Kingdom declared the area around Chagos a marine reserve. However, it soon became clear that this initiative was intended to prevent the Chagos residents from returning to their islands. Restrictions on fishing and waste disposal for the military base were lifted. In 2015, the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague ruled that the British Marine Reserve was illegal, as it was created on Mauritius territory. In 2017, the United Nations General Assembly referred the dispute over the Chagos Islands' ownership to the International Court of Justice. In 2019, the court affirmed Mauritius' claims to these islands, and in 2021, a similar verdict was issued by the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. However, despite these rulings, the United Kingdom has refused to recognize them. In 2022, both countries began bilateral negotiations. On October 3, 2024, they announced an agreement. London agreed to return control of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, and in return, Mauritius leased Diego Garcia, the largest island of the archipelago where the British military base is located, for 99 years. Under the current agreement, the return of the Chagosians to Diego Garcia is excluded. Currently, they are only allowed to reside on the smaller islands. Some believe that the transfer of sovereignty over Chagos could mark the first significant retreat of the British Empire from the historical stage in centuries. However, considering the terms of the agreement, this should not be a major event for the United Kingdom. The potential separation of Australia, however, would be significant. As reported by the Daily Mail, King Charles III is expected to visit Australia next week. It is anticipated that he will not obstruct the potential exit of Australia from the United Kingdom, as he has previously expressed support for the idea of the country becoming a republic. In his letter to the Australian Republican movement, the king emphasized that he has no objections to the idea and believes the decision should be made by Australian society. This is an important statement that indicates the monarch is now more open to discussing the issue. While this statement does not signal a change in current policy, it does open a new chapter in the discussion of this topic. It's worth noting that the king's comments were made before his trip to Australia, which will occur in his capacity as the official head of state. In 1999, Australia held a referendum on independence, in which 55% of the population voted to maintain their status as a British colony. However, according to activists from the Australian Republican movement, the time has come for Australia to assume a more equal position on the international stage. Supporters of a Republican future for Australia claim that their view is gaining popularity each year. Before his trip to Australia, King Charles III postponed cancer treatment, which led to a loss of his sense of taste. On September 7th, Buckingham Palace doctors announced that the king's condition is improving and the prognosis is favorable. Preparations are underway for Charles III's departure and the transfer of responsibilities to his son, William.